Your crypto is taxable in Nigeria. In case you didn't hear me well, your cryptocurrency is taxable in Nigeria. What if you just buy Bitcoin and you hold it in your wallet? Do you have a taxable transaction? Oh, what if you've offered a service, provided a service to someone, and you said, don't pay me in my Naira, pay me with Bitcoin? What happens? Is there anything you should be worried about tax-wise? What if you receive the crypto, or you exchange your USDT, P2P, peer-to-peer? What happens? So today we are going completely digital, and we're going to be looking at the impact of the new tax law on digital assets and virtual assets. Oladejadeyemi is my name, as you know. I remain your foremost business coach who designates his time to reading the tax laws so that you don't have to spend as much time doing the same. So digital assets, virtual assets, what exactly is a digital asset? Based on the tax law, a digital asset is essentially a digital representation of value that can be exchanged digitally. It sounds like one of those primary school definitions, right? Where someone said, what's the meaning of progression? And you say progression is the ability for you to progress. Exactly my point. Digital asset is essentially digital representation of value that can be exchanged digitally. This definition expressly covers crypto assets, security tokens, non-fungible tokens, NFT, as we popularly call them, other derivatives, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever form of assets that exist within the digital space. What then is virtual asset? The law also defines virtual asset, because when you go to the fifth schedule of the Nigeria Tax Administration Act, is dedicated to providing some explanations, in that particular regard. And it defines virtual asset as a digital representation of value that can be digitally traded or transferred and used for payments, investments, or financial purposes. Again, this includes cryptocurrency, tokens, and digital collectibles. So essentially, once you have an expression of an asset that exists digitally, these segments of the law applies to you. Where those assets are then transferred, exchanged, the tax consequence would ordinarily kick effect. Is cryptocurrency different from virtual currency? The answer is yes, in concept. But in form, we can say one is a type of the other, because cryptocurrencies are generally type of virtual assets. Is a type of virtual or digital asset. Remember I mentioned Bitcoin, and the ownership are basically secured through cryptographic technology. That's where he basically got the name crypto, from. So you have different expressions of virtual assets: crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, these are all virtual assets. The big question, however, is crypto taxable in Nigeria? Emphatic answer. Clear question, emphatic answer. That's what we deal with on this channel. And the answer is yes. Is yes, because the tax law contemplates that profits or gains from transactions in digital assets are taxable. Let me say that again. Is crypto taxable in Nigeria? The answer is an emphatic yes. Yes, because The law, the new tax law, provides that profits or gains from transactions in digital assets are taxable. And this is very clear. In fact, other sections expressly recognize digital or virtual assets as chargeable assets for the purposes of computing chargeable gains. Remember, we used to have capital gains tax rates expressed at 10% in the old law. I've done a video on that on this channel. If you have not seen that video, you better go back now and watch it. But that's not what we are considering now. So in the determination of chargeable gains, virtual or digital assets are expressly categorized as chargeable, as relevant, in the computation of chargeable gains. Does it then mean that once you hold a Bitcoin, you already have a tax liability in your hand? This is the question that will interest any player within this space. Does it mean once you hold a Bitcoin, you already have a chargeable or taxable or a tax liability? You already have a taxable event, or you already have a tax liability in your hand? Generally speaking, that's not correct. Holding the Bitcoin or holding the asset in itself is not the challenge. And I'm going to create a scenario here. If you buy a Bitcoin today, let's say for the value, you bought Bitcoin worth, say, 10 million, and you've been holding it. And in the course of holding it, the value had gone up. Let's say the value had gone up to, say, 18 million. It therefore means you have a chargeable gain of 8 million. Now, that 8 million remains a gain with no tax consequence. Yes, it is a gain, but no tax liability will arise therefrom as long as it has not become realized. So in tax concept, that gain is what we refer to as unrealized gain. Unrealized gain. There's a gain. We acknowledged by accounting principle that the value of the virtual assets that you once bought for 10 million is now 18 million. And there's a gain or a chargeable gain of 8 million, but that gain remains unrealized. So if the gain has not been realized, you do not have immediate tax consequence. If you transfer, you exchange the assets, you have then gone ahead to commit an event that will make that gain become realized. Once the gain becomes realized, then the tax consequence kicks in. I beg your pardon. The tax consequence kicks in. So holding the virtual asset in itself does not expressly constitute a taxable transaction. That's a very important note to take right there. So you can have the sale of it, the exchange of it, all of those things will constitute taxable transaction. What else to note in this space? There are many players within this value chain. There are those that are called VASP, Virtual Asset Service Provider. If I continue into that, this podcast is going to be very long, and we like to keep it short and simple. We're going to break it down, what the responsibilities of those VASPs are. There is even there are even more obligations, for them to let you know that this space is heavily, now heavily regulated and has come under the radar within the Nigerian taxing framework. Let's draw the curtain here, and we'll have other episodes dedicated to this. Till I come your way again, remember, I remain your foremost business coach who designates his time to reading the tax laws so that you don't have to spend as much time doing the same. Bye for now.